Named one of Time magazine's 25 most influential names and faces in fashion in 2002, Cameron Silver has a Midas touch when it comes to fashion. He's dressed A-list celebrities such as Nicole Kidman, Jennifer Lopez, and Renee Zellweger in upscale vintage designs, has appeared on E! Entertainment, The Style Network, and Fashion File. He's written for Harper's Bazaar, and if you catch this month's Harper's Bazaar, you'll see a wonderful spread on him. And he's also completing his first book for Rizzoli on Kai-Sek Wong, which will be released in 2005. His mini empire encompasses 2 retail stores, Decades and Decades 2 on Melrose Avenue, plus an in-store Decades boutique inside the Comme des Garçons Dover Street Market in London. Vogue magazine calls Decades the nation's premier source for fabulous 60s and 70s pieces. In 2004, Cameron Silver was named creative consultant to the recently revamped French fashion house Azzaro, founded in 1968 by the late Loris Azzaro. He works with new designer Vanessa Seward on inspiration and development of the collections, as well as oversees all celebrity dressing and advises on marketing and distribution of the collection. He is an expert in fashion history, past and present, a respected authority in the international fashion scene. And today, we're fortunate to have him with us to review the history of a fashion icon, the Chanel jacket, its unique place in the fashion lexicon, and Chanel's perspective on what it perceives as the abuse of the brand.
The number 5. Quilted leather. Strands of pearls and costume jewelry. Interlocking C's, spectator pumps, a Maltese cross, a camellia, a bow. Braided trim along a jacket, which brings us to our subject today, the Chanel jacket. Designed by the legendary Coco Chanel, even her first name is synonymous with fashion and a certain sense of style. Here's another thing she invented, the little black dress. All of these numbers, letters, fabric combinations, color palette, and styles are eternal elements of the house of Chanel. One can see, feel, smell, and practically taste that wonderful world of Chanel that was first created in 1916 with her first couture collection and the introduction of the Chanel jacket. And that is a jacket from 1916, and it was completely revolutionary. Coco was inspired by masculine styles, particularly by one of her lovers, and there were many lovers, the Duke of Westminster. She loved the aristocratic look of men's clothing, and this was 1916, it was World War I. Most women were still stuck in Edwardian styles, but she wanted to free up fashion. And she wanted a jacket with pockets. There never had been a women's couture jacket with pockets, and that's what she first introduced. And she used a rather inexpensive fabric, fabric made from wool jersey, which was not very dissimilar from men's undergarments at the time. And she was completely obsessed with the sleeve, the ease of movement. That was the most important impact the Chanel jacket would have. And she was a huge sensation. There never had been anything like this before. And almost every modern style in women's fashion today can be attributed to Coco Chanel. And she developed the jacket more and more. That's a picture from 1929. In 1936, she loved the Fair Isle cardigans and the Harris tweeds and used those wonderful fabrics to make her jackets. And people called it poverty deluxe because of the simplicity of the designs and the affordability of the fabrics. And it was so obvious that there would be a sensation and people would want to copy it. And Coco was actually rather flattered that there was an interest in copying her fashion. She almost encouraged it to some degree. And at that time, most women who couldn't afford couture, and when I say couture, these days to buy a Chanel couture jacket, it's about 55,000 euro or $80,000. So this was still a substantial amount of money in the teens, 20s, and 30s. But women would go to their dressmaker and they'd clip out a photo from a magazine or a sketch, and the dressmaker would copy the pattern. There was also a great kind of underground trade in the toile patterns that were used to originally conceive these garments. And women would bring a kind of illegal toile garment and share it, and the dressmakers had a field day copying the Chanel look. And that was the first of Faux-nel. And Faux-nel was a huge sensation. It was a huge underground movement in the 20s and 30s. Coco loved it because she said she always wanted to inspire the street, and certainly she did. And she encouraged the copying. She allowed photographers to attend her fashion shows. The only thing she didn't want were sketch artists who were parading as journalists who were really trying to copy the sketches to make their own dresses, as she would watch the audience like a hawk during a runway show. And she wasn't threatened by the copies, because the truth is, the cut could not be replicated. The fabrics might be similar, but she was so obsessed with the integrity of the cut that she never felt threatened by any of the copies. And eventually she became so enthusiastic about having copies that in 1932, to help the war effort, she sent a retrospective of Chanel suit designs to London. And women literally attended the shows with their dressmakers in tow, copying and sketching to create their own Chanel looks at home. And she was even not opposed to what we call diffusions. She created a line of fabrics for Harvey Nichols in 1939, so women could buy an official Chanel fabric and they could make their own unofficial Faux-nel. But then Germany declared war on France, and in 1939, Chanel quit her business for a little while. But she got the itch again, and at the age of 70 in 1954, she returned to fashion. This is a great photo. That's the eve of her return to couture. And she really fine-tuned the modern Chanel jacket. She stated, buttons must have buttonholes, pockets be in the right place, usable. A sleeve isn't right unless the arm lifts easily. And that's a suit from 1954, which looks utterly contemporary today. Another one from 59. I mean, even the photo and the model's demeanor looks modern to me. 63. I think we have one more to show. Do we know? Okay, we jump-started a little bit, but all the Chanel details were incorporated in the revival in the 50s and 60s. The collarless jackets, often with 4 pockets, trimmed with braid. The jackets were silk-lined with something which we called luxe cachet. It was a little gold chain that would keep the weight and the structure of the jacket, a little hidden luxury. And she really didn't change her formula very much. It was very easy to copy Chanel. Usually there's 4 pockets, it's square cut, you change the buttons a little bit season to season. The color palette remained the same. It was red, black, beige, white, navy blue, jersey, and tweed for the jackets. And in the 60s, a whole new wave of Faux-nel existed. There were 2 distinctive houses that emerged and really built a business on the coattails of the Chanel jacket. The first being one started in 1962 by a young woman named Marie Gray. She was only 24 years old. She was engaged to get married, and she loved the styles of Chanel. She was trying to save money for her honeymoon, but wanted a very chic trousseau. So she learned how to knit, and she knitted her own Chanel jacket using all the elements of Chanel, the contrast trim, the braided trim, the pockets, the gold buttons. Well, that business became St. John, which last year did $396 million in sales. And they now have 26 company-owned stores. And Marie Gray said she always wanted to create a Chanel jacket for the ladies who lunch who couldn't afford Chanel, and she certainly has. And again, like Chanel, the details don't change so much. It's a formula that works. Chanel created that formula that's so intrinsic for creating the perfect jacket. What she did differently is she did it in a knit. And you can't own those copyrights. You can't do anything about those details. They're public domain. And the other designer who emerged at the same time and was actually, in a sense, inspired a little bit by St. John was a man named Adolfo, who, like Chanel, originally was a milliner and spent some time working at the Chanel atelier in his early days. And he, unlike St. John, was dressing the women who could afford Chanel. And his clients became most famously Nancy Reagan, Betsy Bloomingdale's. It was really the high society who loved his variation on sort of a St. John, which is sort of a Chanel, and had a huge, huge success as a suit designer as well as an evening wear designer. But it was Adolfo's name that first caught the eye of Chanel Corporation because they were concerned that Adolfo jackets were being referred to as being Chanel-like. And at that time, they realized that we have to protect our name, and Chanel is not an adjective. But Chanel died in 1971 on the 10th of January, and the couture sales slowed down, and sort of the Chanel moment had ended a little bit. In 1978, they introduced ready-to-wear, and then they struck gold because they hired Karl Lagerfeld in 1982, who has brilliantly been able to play with the codes of Chanel. Again, he plays with the braids, the jackets, the camellia, the quilt, and it adopts it to all different types of fashion. They say that before a collection, Lagerfeld will almost meditate in Chanel's apartment above the atelier, and it's been beautifully preserved and uses it as a means to inspire each collection. And unlike Chanel, Lagerfeld is inspired by the street. And some of his references have included hip-hop looks, biker looks, surf looks, Rasta looks, fetish looks. He's been so successful that the Wertheimer family, which owns Chanel, it's still privately owned, had worldwide sales of over $1 billion in the year 2001. And like Chanel, Lagerfeld has been brilliant at promoting himself. Another ready-to-wear image from Lagerfeld's designs. And once again, Lagerfeld has been able to reinvent the Chanel jacket when in October of 2003, he deconstructed the jacket, fraying the trim. Well, this was a huge sensation. And Faux-nel officially entered our vocabulary of fashionista language. It was the most copied jacket. There were variations of it by H&M, Zara, Mex, BCBG. It became so ubiquitous that Bill Cunningham in the New York Times ran a parody of photos of the jacket showing women in the original Chanel ready-to-wear version as well as all of the copies. And Chanel took the copying in stride. They actually felt that their sales were benefiting from it, that Ari Koppelman, the chief executive, thought that women now more than ever would want an original Chanel. But contrary to that opinion, Cal Rudenstein, the fashion director of Bloomingdale's, really felt they were affected by Chanel sales because of all the copies, particularly a version by Zara for $189. And that is when Chanel became more aggressive in the use of Chanel as an adjective. And this is an ad that they place about 4 times a year, mostly in the women's wear daily trade, that says, "A note of information and entreaty to fashion editors, advertisers, copywriters, and other well-intentioned misusers of our Chanel name. Although our style is justly famous, a jacket is only a jacket if it's ours, even if we are flattered by such tributes to our fame as Chanelism, Chaneled, Chanels, and Chanelized. Please don't. Our lawyers positively detest them. We take our trademarks seriously." They sort of make a lawsuit sound rather chic, don't they? So Chanel can't copyright their codes of design, but they can copyright and protect their name. And they don't just go after fashion as a means of using Chanel incorrectly. In October of 2004, there was an escort in Toronto named Chanel, with 2 L's, who on her website, on her homepage, poses rather provocatively leaning against a bottle reminiscent of the number 5. Well, Chanel Corporation went after her, and certainly this escort, no matter how talented she was, didn't have the capital to fight Chanel. And Faux-nel has also been used to describe not only low-end designers, but also many high-end designers. Marc Jacobs a few years ago did a collection inspired by Adolfo being inspired by Chanel. There have been Ungaro versions of that incredible shredded frayed hem jacket. Prada has done a version, and it's even entered men's fashion. Last winter, both Comme des Garçons and Junya Watanabe did their own male version of the cardigan jacket, which I have elected not to model for you this afternoon. And this has been a whole new wave of interest in Chanel because of this one frayed jacket. And one company in particular, I think, has most effectively been able to create their own identity, much the same way St. John had its own look and Adolfo has its own look. A company called True Meaning that was started 3 years ago by a man named Marc Bobo, who's probably fairly well known for a line called Bisou Bisou. And he realized that the women of the 21st century, they wear jeans, a t-shirt, and a cute jacket. And his variation of the Lagerfeld frayed hem jacket has built a terrifically successful business in just 3 years. They're projected to do about 200 million, not 200, they wish, that would be really amazing, $20 million this year. And it's about the fact that this frayed jacket has become, in a sense, the new jean jacket of the 21st century. And now I'd like to bring out 5 of our lovely models wearing 5 variations of a Chanel jacket. So if they will come out and strut their stuff. And I want you to all look very carefully to determine which is the authentic Chanel couture jacket. Now these are some things you should keep in mind. The average price of a Chanel ready-to-wear jacket begins at around $3,000. Exclusive tweed patterns are created specifically for the House of Chanel. Fabrics that are not used for any other garments, and extra bolts are destroyed. Signature linings are matched to the details of the tweed fabric. A gilt chain sewn by hand along the bottom of the jacket on the inside gives the Chanel jacket the substantial weight so it never loses shape. And finally, Chanel's signature buttons and buttonholes are usable and not simply for decoration. One more model. And the 5 jackets we have, one is a true meaning copy of the frayed jacket. One is a Lagerfeld for Chanel frayed hem authentic jacket. One is an Adolfo knit from the 70s. The other is a St. John knit that was not very easy to get because I don't know a lot of women in LA who wear St. John. So I found a friend in Dallas who had a St. John, and she told me the most charming story. When she bought her first St. John in Dallas at Neiman Marcus, a sales associate said to her, "You are a woman now." So you know, you buy a St. John, it's like an automatic bat mitzvah. It's that easy. So we have our Chanel couture. We'll go over the 5 that we have, and we're going to play a little game. I'm going to invite a member of the audience who's going to, hopefully with my very educational description, be able to tell which is which. So, Norman, I think you should be the volunteer. Although I think you have very good fashion taste. And if we have your wife do it, it'll be much too easy for her. You already cheated. I think you really don't. Okay. Why don't you come and do? Okay. And you know there is a door prize. We're all winners today. You know, this jacket could be Chanel with those pockets, you know. All right, so you tell me, which one is the authentic Chanel couture version? I'll give you a card. And you tell me which model is wearing the authentic Chanel couture.
I think I understood her guess right.
I'm so sorry. You have been eliminated. One more, how about a second try?
A second try?
A second try.
This will be entirely, but I don't.
Audience. Yes. Do you want to dial a friend?
Am I wrong?
You're correct. That is the Chanel. So you can hold that. Okay. Now.
You have more use of me?
Oh, well, yes. You're going to have to get them all right. You don't get to leave until you get this all right. This is like your Rubik's Cube of fashion. Which one is the Karl Lagerfeld version for Chanel of the frayed jacket?
Oh, that's easy.
Is it? What, does your wife have it?
No.
Okay.
Which is,
The Lagerfeld version.
you know, if there's anybody that has an educated guess, because mine is just.
So the audience can help. I mean, we can play cold, warm. Which one?
Yeah, that's the one.
No, that's actually the true meaning one. So that's the copy. So this is our Lagerfeld Chanel version. This jacket was made for the Madison Avenue reopening a few months ago. There were only 500 made. This one is your true meaning, which shows how incredibly successful they are at appropriating the look. And now you have 2 more to identify in 2 models, a St. John and an Adolfo.
Yes.
And we did it. Well, we're all winners today. And the fashion gods are very happy. Yes. And if there's any questions, I'm told to answer a few if you have any. And if not, I'm delighted not to answer any questions, trust me.
Any questions for Cameron?
Is the black St. John a knit?
It is a knit, yeah. It is, yes.
Hard to tell.
Yes.
How much does a vintage Chanel jacket sell for?
You know,
In the store?
first, most of the Chanel pieces we get when it's a vintage piece, it's an actual suit. And they start at around, for a couture piece, around $3,200 and up to about $10,000, depending on if it's an evening piece. But, it's not a bad buy when you think if you want to go to Paris and get one new. It's, literally $80,000 is for a basic Chanel couture now. That's with no embroidery. Very sort of like just a little boucle, a couple buttons here and there in those 4 pockets. Yes? True meaning, average price point of only $200. I mean, it's a really cute jacket. It fooled you guys, so. Yes?
The differentiation between the copyright, which could be the style of the cut of the jacket, and the trademark is something that I think may be a little bit confusing. The Women's Wear Daily advertisement, which actually those have been going on for a while.
Right.
The point there is they don't want the word Chanel to become the same thing as the word like linoleum.
Exactly.
Linoleum is a generic word which has no meaning anymore. And so that's part of the distinction between trademark, which protects a source identifier, and copyright, which is the embodiment of the idea, whether it's a song or a motion picture or a painting.
Very true, very well said. Is there anything else, or am I free? Okay, one last one.
Just could you identify the years of all the vintage jackets?
Yeah, the Adolfo is circa 1974. It's actually the same jacket that Barbara Walters was famously photographed in. A woman in Toronto loaned it to us. The St. John is circa around 1997. The Chanel Couture is early 60s. The Lagerfeld is about 2 or 3 months old. And the True Meaning is a current sample that they were very kind to provide to us. I'd like to let you guys know that both St. John and Chanel were not very effusive about getting involved in this project, I think because of the protection of their names. St. John didn't really want to be associated with being a Faux-nel, which I completely understand. And I was really hoping Chanel would give us a gift bag or something like that. So.
Please thank Cameron Silver and our wonderful models.